Hi, welcome to Timber and Chain. I'm Elisa Hopper. Today I'm going to show you how I make polymer clay flowers. Join me. I start by choosing a color, which in this case is pearl. I use Sculpey 3 because that's all I could find at the time, but if you use Sculpey 3, know that you'll have to deal with bubbles, and the pliability and squishiness is almost too much. So I roll out the clay and pass it through the machine, and then I use 3 layers on the thickest setting for each bowl. I use a 4-inch cutter for these, which happens to be a straw holder I already had. You can smooth the edges with your finger for less sanding later. Now for the flowers. The first is a ruffly carnation type flower, and I make a few circles for each one using a 1.5-inch cutter. The clay needs to be really thin for this, so I use a machine first. I want a frilly, naturally organic edge, so I pinch them with my fingers, and then I use a roller that's acrylic to remove the fingerprints. This seems like a really long process, but the end result is exactly what I want. If you have a technique you think works better, please let me know in the comments. I love learning new ways to work with clay. I just figure most art takes a lot of time, and the fast motion button comes in super handy when editing. By the way, a full list of tools and materials are on the blog along with their links for purchase. After rolling out fingerprints, find the middle of the circle and fold it up, allowing the edges to ruffle and squishing the bottom together. Repeat 2 more times, adding each flower to the first one. Now using a blade, slice off the excess on the bottom so you have a flat surface. Before attaching the flower to the dish, choose an oven-safe bowl or mold and carefully place the clay round into the center, making sure there are no pockets or bubbles of air, and press down the edges so they're tight against the bowl mold. To work out fingerprints, you can use a piece of parchment paper. Position the flower where you want it and attach it with liquid clay. I find this works much better than Bacon Bond. To secure it well and flare out the petals, I use this Sculpey tool with removable attachments. Here I'm using a little ball tool, and at this step you can shape the flower exactly as you want it. I repeat that process for the next dish in beige, also Sculpey 3, using the scraps to make a flower topper. Roll it into a long bar and cut off a small piece. Roll that into a ball and make a little cone or bud shape for the center of the flower. Then cut a series of rounds for petals and press them flat. Use a roller to remove the fingerprints and thin out the petals. Then wrap each one individually around the bud, overlapping the previous petal and shaping as you go. Don't worry too much about the bottom of the rose, it will end up being cut off. Slice off the bottom as before with the blade, rolling as you go so you don't distort the top of the rose. Repeat the attachment process after the molding in the bowl. For these little flowers, roll out a bar again and cut 3 even pieces. Then shape them into buds. Using a small pair of scissors, cut them into 4 even petals. Then using the small ball tool, roll out the center of each petal, then shape the ends into points with your hands. I roll out a tiny ball for the center. Repeat the process for molding into the bowl. To add the flowers, add liquid clay to the bottom of each and set into the dish. Use a ball tool to secure them carefully. I added a tiny ball in pearl clay to the center of each flower before baking. Bake at 270 degrees for 45 minutes. Be sure to let them cool completely before removing them from the molds. Sand any rough edges using fine grit sandpaper. When the edges are smooth, I glaze the bottom of the dishes with Sculpey satin glaze using a firm synthetic flat edge brush. When they're fully dry, I flip them over and glaze the top. Use a tiny brush for the petals. Finally, I use liquid leaf in Classic Gold by Plaid, and I apply it to the edges of each dish using a small, dense brush. I have another video showing this process in detail here. And there you go. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. Don't forget to check out the blog for a complete list of materials, clay colors, and even more detailed instructions and tips. Thanks for watching. Now go make something amazing.